Hello everyone, and in this video I'm going to be going over Crunchy Roll Expo Australia, which happened over the weekend, but I'm also going to be going over my thoughts on the latest episode of Ghost Game, which is episode 43, Red Eyes. So first up, I'll go over my thoughts about Crunchy Roll Expo this weekend. So this was technically the convention's first year in Australia, however it actually replaced an existing convention called Madfest, which was owned by Madman, who owned Anime Lab, which until about a year ago was its own thing, but Crunchyroll bought it last year, and now instead of Anime Lab we had Funimation, but then Crunchyroll also ate Funimation. So Madfest became Crunchyroll Expo, and it was more or less exactly the same in terms of what was inside. It was run the same way, but it just had like a palette swap from the purple of Anime Lab to the orange of Crunchyroll. So it was more or less the same thing. And I went to previous Madfests, and it felt exactly the same as this one. However, we haven't actually had a convention in a few years because of COVID, so this was also kind of like the first Madfest, or Crunchyroll in this case, for a few years. So, in any case, mostly things, were pretty much the same. So I arrived just before 10 AM with some friends. I did have a media pass, but I decided to wait in line with my friends in the 4-hour long wait. Even though we arrived just before 10, there was still a 4-hour wait. And the reason for this was that the venue told the organisers like a few hours before they opened that they were actually, the capacity was like 3,000 less than the number of tickets sold for one day. So that means that they met capacity very quickly, just around 10 o'clock, and then they basically had to do a one-in, one-out sort of situation where they kept on having to fill back up to capacity, which, when you actually did get to go inside, it was pretty spacious and it wasn't crowded at all because of how small the number of capacity was, as it turns out. So it was very spacious and it wasn't crowded at all, but this necessarily wasn't a good thing because it meant that you had to wait outside in the very stormy weather. It's in Melbourne, and Melbourne is a very wet place to be in spring. It went stormy, and then bright sunny, and then stormy again. So not good weather for you to be outside in a 4-hour line. So that was kind of rough. So we got there at just before 10, and we got in around 2 PM. So that was kind of rough, and a lot of people were obviously understandably upset. But some people were being awful to the volunteers, and the volunteers were just being the bearer of bad news and doing the best they could. However, what they could have done is they could have had ways to organize the line. The line was just people. The line didn't have any tape or any barricades to sort of organize the lines, so lines were merging and then splitting, and some lines were just appearing out of nowhere, which meant that it was harder to organize for the volunteers, and because it was basically organized by people, we were just kind of snaking around this building in several different rows. They would just split, and sometimes they would just turn around and face the wrong way, and they had to be turned around, and it was kind of terrible for the poor volunteers as well as the people in line. So that was kind of unfair just for everyone involved. A lot of conventions that do have longer lines tend to have tape to kind of organize the lines, or some roping or some barricades just to kind of work out where the line will be. I've been to PAX Australia, which does have a similar line for getting your tickets, or just entry in general. And they have those ropes, so it really needed that. But then again, they didn't know that they were going to be over capacity. The tickets sold out a few weeks ago. However, because the capacity changed a few hours before it opened, there was no way to sort of rectify that. So that was kind of just a bad situation to be in for everyone involved. And I guess they wouldn't have had tape because they thought that they were completely fine with in terms of capacity. So that's a shame. However, when we were in line, some volunteers actually said, and I'm not sure if this is accurate at all, but they at least claimed that this was because of counterfeit tickets, which kind of makes no sense because the email ticket, and I saw the ones that my friends had, were just QR codes in an email, one of the electronic tickets. And I'm not sure how, like, that doesn't, surely it would check an ID on the database and check to see if it was valid or not. So I don't know how counterfeit tickets could have been done there unless they did an injection of the database itself. So I'm not sure if they were just trying to come up with a reason. I feel like it would have just been best to just say the truth, but I guess this one seems like the easiest to get people off your back. But I haven't actually heard anything about these counterfeit tickets other than the maybe volunteer or volunteers that said it when we were in line. So that's kind of a shame. Another shame that is because we were in line for so long, about 10 minutes before we got in, the people in front of us, or two sets of people ahead, just like they were a family and they just left. Which is understandable, but it feels it's a shame because we got in like maybe 15 minutes later. I understand why they left because we had actually not moved for about an hour. We were in the same spot, which is sort of near the door. So I understand why they left. And that's kind of a shame. I feel like a lot of people did give up and just left. Which is a shame. They didn't get to enjoy the convention because it actually was a pretty cool convention, except for that line. But that just seems like the fire marshals came in and said, nope, the capacity is actually this. So that is a shame. But I feel like that they should have at least had some lines or some better way to organise lines rather than just entrust it on people. I heard that the line became more chaotic after we got in. This is just like scuttlebutt from Twitter, so it can completely just be made up. But I heard like there was like people assaulting people like pushing in line, someone else bit someone, which whenever there's drama at a convention, someone's always biting someone, and I'm not sure if that was even real, but it's just a scuttlebutt that I've read on Twitter from what other people have experienced. We did have other friends who ended up getting turned around, like they just said, hey, we'll refund your ticket, just leave. Because they were just probably not going to get in. Which is a shame because they only came like maybe an hour or two after us. So that's a shame. And they still had to stand in line for 2 hours only to be told that they wouldn't get in. So they were still standing around even if you got rejected. And they already had their tickets. They pre-bought their tickets. So that's really annoying and I really feel for those people. However, some people were just awful to the volunteers, which makes no sense. Why be awful to the volunteers? They didn't plan it. It's not their fault. Some people are just really awful to volunteers, which is never good. You should be nice to volunteers. They're there to help you, and they don't have the amazing power. Some people were trying to ask the volunteers to let them in anyway, even if they weren't at the front of the line, and that feels unfair. Like they'll be like, oh, we have children. You should let us inside. A lot of people had children in the line. Everyone wanted to be inside. Anyway, so that was kind of rough, and the fact that some volunteers were saying it was counterfeit tickets, if that's not true, why say it? I don't think it is true. The more I think about it, it seems pretty unlikely, but that was what was said. Anyway, so once inside, it was fairly spacious, and it didn't have many crowds, as I mentioned, but again, that was because they had all the people outside. So it was also felt like it had less things to do than Madfest. It felt like it was more spacious. However, each of the 4 sides of the room it was in, and the several events that had speakers, meant that it was incredibly noisy, with all the stages trying to sort of keep up with each other in terms of loudness so they could be heard by that area. They're also, and I'm not like a sound engineer or sound expert or anything, but there seemed to be a lot of bass. Like, it was very loud and very bassy, and just really loud, and there were, I think there were like 2 stages here, and then there was on the other side, and there was like one in the middle, and then one to the other side. So yeah, there were about 4, but they were kind of spread out, but not evenly. It was kind of weird, and they were all like, they felt like they were fighting to be heard. So that was a thing. It was extremely uncomfortable to be inside. If anyone's sensitive to noise, I feel like that would have been just a terrible place to be if you don't want to be in a line for several hours and then go inside and have very, very loud, uncomfortably bassy noises going on. That's kind of annoying. I got used to it. I'm not super sensitive to the noise, but it was very hard to, like, talk to my friends. So that was a thing. So there were several exhibits and events and things to see inside, and there were also, of course, areas where you could take photos, which were really cool, especially if you were in cosplay. I cosplayed as Daisuke from Digimon Adventure 02, and there was like a little soccer ball for like a new sports anime that's a soccer-oriented anime, so that was kind of cool. And they had like Fire Force photo booths and really cool stuff. I do like when they have these like photo booth areas or like backdrop areas for cosplay. I think that's really cool always. I love cosplaying, I love going to these things and cosplaying and taking photos. So that's a bit of fun. And because it wasn't too crowded in there, it was pretty easy to get photos in front of these areas. So my favourite exhibit, and this is always my favourite, was the stamp rally. At the previous Madfest, it was a one-piece one, and you get like a coin. This time at Crunchy Roll, it was a spy, and I'm not sure if it's Spy Family, like Hunter x Hunter, or if it's Spy X Family, so I'm just gonna say Spy X Family. I haven't seen it yet. I will. It looks really good. Everyone's telling me to watch it. Apparently it's like, it's the big anime at the moment. So it was a Spy X Family one. You had to go around and find stamps attached to, like, these cutouts of the characters. You stamp your thing, you take it to the Crunchyroll desk, and they would give you a pin. That's always cool. I'm a big fan of those little scavenger hunt things, so that was probably my highlight. I also, as I mentioned, I love the photo booths. I think that's pretty cool, but the scavenger hunt was probably my favourite. They also had a Digimon model kit display for the Bandai area, so that was pretty cool to see. I love the Digimon model kits. I really need to build more of them. I've got all of them. I just haven't built them all. So that was pretty cool to see, like, just in general. Like, hey, Digimon! As soon as you walk in, I was like, hey, Bandai, hey, Digimon! So that was pretty cool. And overall, other than the pretty huge line to get in, and all the noise being all about that bass, it was a pretty cool and fun con, and it just felt exactly like Madfest, but with less crowd, and sometimes I felt like a little bit less stuff to do. It had elements that were from Madfest, or just like, updated elements of those. It felt like it had a huge focus on VTubers. It had a big thing for Holo Live where you could watch Holo Live stuff. It had like the Crunchyroll mascot as a VTuber sort of thing. It had a big focus on VTuber, which is kind of, I guess, the big thing at the moment, or at least in the last few years it's become a big thing, especially since COVID. It used to be just like Kizuna Ai, like 7 years ago, and then maybe less, maybe it was like 5 years ago with Kizuna Ai. But anyway, so yeah, it had a big VTuber focus, which I'm not really, I don't really keep up with all the different VTubers. I know that there's a shark hoodie wearing one from Hololive. That was pretty cool. They also had cutouts of that, so that was cool, but otherwise I'm not super knowledgeable about VTubers, but it seemed pretty cool, and it seemed to be like a big thing. There was also a Sword Art online sort of area with like information, because it was the 10th anniversary of the franchise. Apparently it's still going. I didn't know it was still going, but hey, I learned something new every day. So that was cool. But in general, those are my thoughts about Crunchyroll Expo Australia 2022. The first Crunchyroll Expo, but again, it just felt exactly like Madfest, so I'm treating it basically as a Madfest, but with a different name, because that's what it was. It's run by essentially the same people, just they are now owned by Crunchyroll. So anyway, it is its first year, but it's also not, and I felt like the lines could have been managed better, but they only really just found out just before opening. I can't blame them too much. But anyway, those are my thoughts on Crunchyroll 2022. So let's get into Digimon Ghost Game for this week. So it's episode 43. It's called Red Eye, and this episode sees a character which Kyo knows, and she's basically this busybody, but every time that she is trying to be a busybody or tries to find something out, she is in a lot of pain, and it's revealed that she gets an eye appearing on her body, which is deeply disturbing. This episode in general is pretty graphic, especially at one point when she finds out that she's getting these eyes appear. She goes to the bathroom and she starts to pick the eye, tries to get it off her arm. It's really gross. She's poking it and touching it, and because it's an eye, it's flinching, and she's groaning in pain. It's actually really graphic, as Ghost Game tends to do on occasion. So she ends up going to the others and hanging out with them because she knows Kiyoshiro from when he was studying abroad, and then really calls them for an important meeting. she informs them about Eismon, and we find out that Eismon is actually infecting people around just to get more information. And it's revealed to be, or at least to the audience, to be due to this hacker who may or may not be the one from the Morphmon episode. It'd be kind of cool if she's like this reoccurring villain, or maybe she's just like a blank character that they have to choose. So like, hey, she can be the villain even if she's got no information there, like in the Yatagaramon episode. So in any case, Emma kind of reveals that she's got these eyes and that she's in danger of crumbling apart, which is kind of disturbing. And then the characters end up fighting the Eismon from Emma, and they're able to kind of stun it by have Canon Weissmon glow real a lot, and then Tesla Jellymon does get the finishing shot. So that's kind of cool that they didn't give it completely to Canon Weissmon, but I really wish they could have a solution for an episode without cracking out Canon Weissmon, because I feel like he fixes things in most episodes. So that's the episode, and in terms of my feelings about it, it'd be really cool if that girl who is the problem girl, the hacker girl, becomes like a recurring character who actually has a character, but I'm kind of worried that she's just there to be kind of evil. She was doing computer stuff and she was upsetting Morphmon, and now she's upsetting other people, but seems to be more in cahoots with Eismon rather than just hurting Morphmon. So it's a bit different from the last time, so that's pretty cool. The episode was, again, incredibly graphic in terms of the eyes appearing on the bodies of the characters, and especially when Emma tries to, like, pick off the eyes from her body. It's really gross, especially if you don't like anything to do with eyes being poked or prodded or any eyes appearing on people's body. It's kind of a graphic, disturbing episode, which is something I love when Ghost Game does that. I feel like they do graphic and gross really well. It made me, like, cringe. It made me, like, really deeply, like, ugh. Like, you know, that visceral reaction to, like, someone poking someone's eyes out in a movie. It was really gross, and they did a really good job with it. It was really well animated. But, yeah, unfortunately, they solved it with a Canon Weissmon just glowing a lot. Again, Ghost Game does have a problem with ending the episodes. It feels like a lot of the time they run out of time spending so much on the lead up to the Monster of the Week battle, they don't have time for the actual battle itself. So it just felt incredibly like, oh, we're in battle now, okay, Canon Weissmon glows, then Tesla Jellymon does the finishing hit, and actually kills Eismon. Another thing I noticed was that I feel like the characters who got possessed by Eismon but didn't get rescued just died. It looks extremely graphic. We get, like, kind of far away, shadowy shots of these corpses. So that was kind of graphic. But in general, I like this episode, but it does have that Ghost Game problem of just ending. Like, hey, I also do videos, I also have no idea to end them, but I guess an episode of Ghost Game can't just say like, comment, subscribe, etc., and they have to actually finish it, so that is fair. But, yeah, this was another good episode. I like this episode. It shows promise. I do like when the Monster of the Week episodes do have some story that is enjoyable. It isn't just a copy-paste of previous episodes. It had elements of, yes, the hacker girl is kind of like the baddie of the episode, but it didn't feel exactly like the last episode that we had the hacker girl. Even if she's not the same character, I hope she's the same character. She looks similar enough, and by that I mean she's in a dark room with computers and she's wearing glasses and she has, like, messy, disheveled brown hair. Which could just be, like, she's just a side character or, like, just a background extra character, I don't know. But in any case, those are my thoughts about this week's episode of Ghost Game, and also the bonus of my experience at Crunchyroll this year. But, yes, so like this video if you sympathise with me for staying in line with my friends for 4 hours. We had good chats. I don't know, my friend didn't know something about the royal family, and I was like, well, I'm half English, and somehow I just have this knowledge, so I just talked about that. He probably hates me now, it's fine. But in any case, like this video for your sympathies. Let me know your thoughts about this episode or Crunchyroll Expo or anything in the comments below. Subscribe, and I'll love you forever. And I guess I'll see you on the next one. Bye!